This is the top half of the CLRacing 4-in-1 ESC. Now, what I would like to draw your attention to is this connector right here and the pinout along the top. So a lot of times these connectors will have the pinout listed right back here on the edge of the pins on the back side of the connector. But this one has, well, the solder pads up here. So if you didn't have a flight control board with the proper connector on it, you could just cut the end off and solder it straight to these pads. So the important part here is where you see motor 4, 3, 2, and 1. Also keep in mind we have positive, battery positive here, and then ground. And right now I don't care about telemetry and the current sense, but just know that they're there. Focus on positive is over on this side, and then we have motors 4, 3, 2, 1. Then from the same company, from CLRacing, this is the CLRacing F4S version 1.6 flight control board. This connector up here, here's our power again. So notice that there's our V, there's our G. So we know that power and ground are right here. And if you really wanted to go further, you could see telemetry and the current sense. It's all in order with the other connector. But now on this one, we have motor 1, 2, 3, and 4, whereas on the 4-in-1 ESC, it was 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so it's obviously wrong, and I'm not really going to complain about the company or anything like that, because it's whatever. Everything just changes all the time. But what makes this potentially more confusing is the fact that being the same company, you might not assume that this connector is immediately the issue, and you could go to a lot more extravagant troubleshoot measures, possibly making some various purchases to try to fix the problem, when it turns out it's just a wiring connector issue. So what we're going to do next is we're going to get our connector. We're going to get our connector right here. And instead of cutting any wires or doing anything weird like that, we're just going to pull some pins out of here. And it's a pretty normal practice. This is pretty normal. Those of you that have been in this for a while, you know how this works. 3D printers, CNCs, all the electronic components. We're always dinking around with these JST connectors. And if you're feeling, really frisky, then you actually go purchase the JST crimper tool and spend hours crimping ends for your own custom-made cables. Then one last thing to check, just because it could be possible, right? We see this as 4, 3, 2, 1 right here, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this pad actually routes to this pin right here. So I've got my meter out here, and listen. Okay, so scratchy latching. Well, let's try over here, right? So we'll go to power. Is power this first pin? Well, it doesn't look like it, except, remember this. This is, by the way, why I have these very sharp tip probes right here. These, lately, more and more, have a conformal coating on them. So it's a coating of typically silicone, could be polyurethane, but silicone coating to keep water out. So whereas if I just touch it, I didn't get anything but scratch it. You see? Okay. So that is power. So then I'll go over here to ground to the next one. Right on down the way. Oops, guess I gotta get on the pad. Okay, now here's what we're concerned about. So here's motor, 3. Get on the pad. So as you can see, this is truly the wire pattern. Good to test, but it is unfortunately the way that it's wired. So we will have to change that. Now, here is what you're going to do. The first thing, well, here's what you're not going to do. Do not take your nice pointy tweezers and use these to pick things. We need these for small items, right? So that's a pet peeve of mine, so don't do that. Get yourself a knife, get something sharp, something that's got a sharp little point right here. And then you're going to lift up. So just find your 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the green wire right here. And we'll just take this and lift up that tab. Don't break it off. Just lift it up. And you're going to have to, there you go. You see? Just pull this out. Now we've got the other side for color pattern, so I'm not really worried about losing my my colors right now. So lift it up. Now it might pop back down, so you might hold it up a little bit if you can, and then pull the pin out like so. You see? Right. And the last one. See? Not really too bad at all. The thing I don't know if you can see here, let's see if we can set this up so you can see it. Right here on the top of the pin, there is a little bit of a tab just on this side over here. That needs to be up. So that goes through and catches on the lip of that little plastic piece and holds it in place. So, for example, let's see, green, this is going to be number 1. So I'm going to take this, press it in, and then pull back, and it should snag, it should catch, okay? You might need to want to press down the plastic first because you kind of pried it up a little bit, right? Okay, so green is 1, then yellow is 2. Now, if for some reason it doesn't go up there all the way, it's kind of hard to grab it back here and push it with any force, so you could get up in here. Come on. Maybe give it a little bit more of a push. Okay, I think that's fine. All right, so now this cable has been reversed. So then if you look at this, so we'll start with this one here. This will be our key. So we go red, black, white, blue. That's common to all of them. Then again on this one right here, we've got green is in our, let's say, our next position, our first motor position, which is our last motor position over here. Over here we've got yellow, goes to the next one, pink goes to the next one, and then brown on the end of this one is the first over on this one. Everything has been sufficiently turned around, okay? So that's how you do that. That's not really that big of a deal. If for some reason that was absolutely horrible to you and you just didn't want to do it, or very possibly you might get 2 different boards that have absolutely different connectors and you just, and different types of pins, you can't switch and swap them at all, then that is where having these actual solder pads comes in handy. Not every manufacturer does this. Now, before we go any further, we've actually got 2 milestones here. We want to test our motors from our board-to-board interconnect that we just rewired up here. But before you do anything to your flight control board, this is your first test. This is the thing that you want to do as soon as you get this and take it out of the box. So you're going to get your USB cable and all by itself plug this in to validate your flight control board before you do anything to it. Before you solder any wires, before you connect any connectors to it that might possibly damage it a little bit and then you don't know that that was the cause of it, take this, plug it in, and watch over in Betaflight now. So you're going to get your blinking lights. We have a port so we can connect, and then if you move the flight control board around, you can see that it is moving properly. So now if you notice, right up here, this is oriented the right direction here. So this is the front. If I lift this up, the front comes up, but you see it looks a little off axis. That's what this button is for right here. So if you face the flight control board the direction you want it to be, hit reset axes. This is not calibration. This just centers it on the screen. So when I tip backwards, it matches more of what I'm doing. So I'm tipping back and forth, and then I yaw side to side, and that is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and then I roll side to side. If that is not correct, if you are certain that that is not correct, then under configuration here, you can go to your board sensor alignment and you could change it here. We have had some instances where this was wrong and that needed to be changed, but like I said, you have to be sure. So that is another big step out of the way. We know that our flight control board is functioning. Okay, next we can unplug this. We can plug our cable back in and get our board mounted how we like it. So we know that our flight control board is functioning by itself. We know that our 4-in-1 ESC is functioning. We're getting half the beep tones. If we were to plug in our battery now, we should see power on our flight control board because it's getting it via our board-to-board interconnect right here. And we should get our full beep pattern now. So here we go. Very good. And you see, everything's flashing as it should. So we'll disconnect again. We'll try that again. Great. So we know that everything now at this point is functioning how it should. We can now plug in our USB and we can do a motor test. So then we can go connect. We'll go down here to motors and check the box and move the slider. So now move the slider up very carefully. If you want, you can just click it to get the computer's focus on it, and then you could use the arrow keys on your keyboard. You hear me tapping that? And then the motors will slowly come up. So there's 1030, 1034. Oh, there they go. So this right here is normal. There's a lot of people that ask, how come they're just twitching, or one is spinning better than the rest, or one is not spinning at all. That is absolutely totally normal. In different situations, if you're trying to fly and arm the quad, it could be because it's a little bit crooked and it's trying to level itself out, but without propellers, it can't level itself out. In this particular case, we just don't have, you see, one more click, it started going. We just didn't quite have enough voltage to get this one going. And then as you start, there you go. You get up just a little bit more. Now they're all spinning just as they should. So let's bring this up. Nice. All right, so everything seems to be good. We could probably say, good job, sign off, except we did not test one critical piece. We just finished doing a rewire of our board-to-board interconnect. We swapped our motors around, remember? So we want to check to make sure that we actually did this correct. So we're going to go over here again to Betaflight, and instead of just bring up all the motors, let's bring them up one at a time and see what happens. Okay, so here is the moment of truth. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So motor number 1. Woo. Motor number 2. Motor number 3. It's got to be right, right? Motor number 4. Excellent. So everything we did is working just fine. So we did a handful of things in this video here. We rewired our board-to-board interconnect because the motors were backwards. We did a test of the flight control board all by itself, just USB, to make sure that that's functioning. We did a beep test with just the battery without plugged into USB to make sure we got all the beep tones. Then we did our motor test to make sure the motor spun. And then what we just did is make sure that we actually wired our interconnect properly. Okay, so that's it for this video. The next one, we're going to take a look at the control receiver, how to solder that in there, and how you'd go about figuring out how to solder it to where. All right, so I'll see you in the next one.